Story time about my psychotic best friend. So we're gonna call this girl Gia. So a little background information. This all happened whenever I was in 9th grade. I saw Gia sitting at this lunch table alone and I invited her to come sit with my friends and I. And after talking to her, I found out that she was a new student and she didn't have any friends. So her and I started hanging out and we became really close. Like, she would come over my house 24/7. Well, my older sister was a grade above us and she would act really weird around her. And by weird, I mean like she would always make fun of me in front of my sister. And weirdly enough, try to cause problems between us. My sister didn't really like her. She thought that she was weird. But because she was my friend, she was being super nice to her. Well, like a month later, she started trying to become best friends with my sister. Like any conversation she would have, I would be like, oh, do you want to come over? She would be like, no, sorry, I'm hanging out with your sister today. And I would go home and I would be like, hey, are you hanging out with Gia today? And my sister would be like, what the hell are you talking about? Like for part 2. Part 2 about my psychotic best friend. So like I said, my sister was like, no, what are you talking about? So at this point, I'm thinking, oh, this girl's really weird. But it gets even worse. She comes over my house one day to hang out with me and goes in my sister's room the whole time. My sister dyed her hair black, so what does she do? She dyes her hair black too. The obsession was like really fucking weird. Anyway, so the one night that Gia's over, yes, I still had her over after this because I didn't think it was really weird at the time. My sister had her boyfriend over and they were in the living room watching a movie, and the whole time Gia is begging me to go in the living room and watch the movie with them. So I'm like, fine, whatever, we'll do that. We go into the living room, we all sit on the couch, and my couch is kind of small, so like we all had to squish. So she sits her ass right next to my sister's boyfriend. Well, my sister's boyfriend got up and started freaking the fuck out. Well, turns out that Gia was trying to touch him under the blanket. So I told her to leave. The next day I got a whole paragraph of her saying that she just wanted to be
Part 3. So my best friend and my fiance go on a trip by themselves behind my back. The whole time they were on their trips, I thought he was on a work trip and I thought she was with some dude. Because of the time difference, my fiance kept saying that he couldn't FaceTime, so we would just talk on the phone. The conversations were really short and he was acting really strange. He told me he was on a work trip to London, and because the whole thing felt so strange, I decided to call his mom. So I call her and I'm like, hey, where did he travel to again? And she replied, Aruba. I didn't say anything to her and I just got off the phone. I knew he was lying, and I knew my best friend was in Aruba. I connected the dots and realized they were both on a vacation together. The day that he was supposed to fly in, I showed up to the airport knowing that he was coming from Aruba, and I see them walking out to arrivals hand in hand. They saw me right away, and my best friend literally ran away.
Story time about the boy across the street who used to stalk me. So a little background information. My parents and I moved into a new house that was literally 5 minutes from where I used to live. But I went to private school, and almost all the other kids in my town went to the public school. So I didn't really know a lot of the kids in my town. Well, a week after we moved in, our neighbors across the street invited us to a barbecue. While we were there, I started talking to our neighbor's older son, and him and I started to get along really well, like in a flirty way. Their older son was a senior, I was a sophomore, and their younger son was a freshman. Well, I kind of talked to the younger son, but he was just like giving me really weird vibes. So for the next few weeks, I started hanging out with their older son a lot and we would talk all the time. Well, the one day whenever I went over their house, it was super weird. His younger brother kept saying, oh, I think I know you from somewhere. Like, I swear I know you. And I'm
Story time. I babysat a lot of kids in my neighborhood, and there was this one night that I was babysitting a 2-year-old. It was around 10 o'clock at night, so the kid was sleeping, and I was just sitting in the living room. In the living room, there was a big TV, a couch, and then behind me, it was a wall with a giant window. So it was really late at night, I had nothing to do, so I was Snapchatting my friends. If you Snapchat anybody, I'm sure you know that sometimes you Snapchat really fast. You don't even know or look at what you're sending. I was mass snapping all my friends, and then one of them replied 10 minutes later. And he said, who's that guy behind you? And I turned around and no one was there, so I'm like, he's playing a joke on me. But then I get another Snapchat from this friend I had, and she lives all the way across the country. They don't know each other. And she said, I think there's someone outside. So I was really freaked out because I was alone. There was a giant window behind me. Apparently there was someone outside. I wasn't gonna call the child's parents because I didn't want to freak them out, but I was scared. Part 2. So yeah, there was a guy outside the window. So yes, I did lock all the doors and everything. I made sure everything was secure. I closed the blinds. So for the rest of the night, nothing else really happened other than this really weird thump. It was like someone was knocking on a window. Allow me to demonstrate. I ignored it because I was in denial that this was happening. The rest of the night was normal. The parents came home. I drove really fast home. And then the next morning I wake up. And apparently, an old man with Alzheimer's had escaped from his little home. I did not know this because it was dark outside, and even if I did see him outside the window, I wouldn't have known this. But he was naked. Naked. So it wasn't like a mass murderer outside the window, but it was a naked man with Alzheimer's looking at me through a window. It's not every teenage girl's dream, but it's really weird just knowing that a naked old man was staring at me through a window.
One time I was behind the register at Victoria's Secret. This customer walks in and immediately everybody spots her as a red flag. She's just picking up items, throwing them in her bag, not looking at sizes, not looking at colors. So everybody's like, everyone's on their walkie like, watch this customer. She's coming to the fitting room. She's headed to the cash wrap. Somebody get her. Check her ID. Get her. Get her. She has a bag full of stuff. And guess who gets her at the register? Me. So she comes to my register and she dumps out her stuff and we're having a regular conversation. Hi, how are you? Yada, yada, yada. Her total comes up to probably between $700 to $900. It was expensive. My manager's at the register next to me talking to me on the walkie. Ashley, make sure you get that ID. Don't matter what she's using, make sure you get that ID.
Story time about my extremely toxic boyfriend. So when I was in high school, I was dating this boy for 3 months. We're gonna call him Nick. And my friends hated him because he was super mean to all of them, but he was super nice to me. Well, after dating for about a month, he started acting super weird. Like he stopped paying attention to me, he didn't want to hang out with me. And I was going through a depression this time because my dad had just died. I wasn't really doing my makeup anymore. I wouldn't do my hair anymore. And I started gaining a little bit of weight because all I would do is sleep in bed all the time. Eat 24/7. Well, soon our 2 months was coming up. And he wanted to go to this party. So I literally begged him to FaceTime me. And I was asking him, oh, what should I wear? So I put on this dress that was really tight fitting, which I was already super uncomfortable about wearing because of the fact that I had a little bit of a belly now.
In middle school, when I met this girl, we were both into a lot of the same things and we really hit it off. And from then on, we were best friends. However, I always noticed that when I liked a boy and she found out, she would immediately tell me that she liked them and would flirt with them in front of me since middle school and high school. And I was really insecure about my appearance and she was really pretty. Skipping to high school, after a few years of avoiding dating boys at our school because of her, I got a boyfriend. Let's call him Luke. Luke was crazy out of my league and I was really excited he asked me out. She was really bitter about the whole thing, and anytime I brought him up, she would shut me down or make me feel bad about getting a boyfriend before her. Anyways, a couple months passed by and things were getting great until I found out Luke had been cheating on me the whole entire time. I tell my friend sobbing and she pretty much dismisses the whole thing. The next semester, they have a class together and instead of being there for me, she befriends him and starts flirting with him on social media where I can see. I told her I was tired of it and stopped being her friend. She made several
14, I had a best friend named Lucy, and we had one of those friendships where we were really close really quickly, which I now know is a red flag and usually a sign of a toxic friendship, but I was too young to know this then. Our favorite thing to do together was hang out at the mall. Our parents would let us go alone as long as we abided to one rule. We had to stay together at all times, and we were always pretty good about that. One night we were having a sleepover at Lucy's house and her Uncle Mike came over. Uncle Mike was pretty loud and goofy. He showed us like 8 magic tricks that night. I liked him, he was fun. But as I was helping clear dishes after dinner, I overheard Mike and Lucy's mom having a hushed conversation in the kitchen. She was like, you've had too much to drink, why don't you just spend the night? So Mike ended up sleeping over that night too. Right before going to sleep, Lucy's mom came into the bedroom, and she told us to remember to shut the bedroom door before falling asleep. When I asked Lucy why she said that, Lucy just shrugged and said, I don't know. But we made sure the bedroom door was shut just like she asked. In the middle of the night, I woke up to the feeling of someone tickling my feet.
One time I had to babysit one of my neighbor's kids overnight. We're gonna call the kid Benny. The parents didn't really tell me anything when they left me alone with Benny, but they left me a note and they were like, you can only open it in emergencies. So at this point, I'm alone with Benny. It's like 11 p.m. and I told Benny, I was like, dude, you should like get to bed, it's late. Then Benny starts getting really red and he's like, no, we don't want to sleep alone, sleep with us, please. I didn't know why Benny said us, but I was like, whatever, okay, like, yeah, I'll sleep in your room, like, it's fine. So fast forward a couple hours, it's like 3 in the morning at this point. This is the best part. Benny starts talking in his sleep and he's like, take her instead. You're not my friend anymore. I am not yours. And I try waking him up and I look at him and his eyes are wide open as he says this stuff. I was freaking out, so I went to go open the note that his parents said was only for emergencies. It just gets better. The note said, we're sorry for not telling you. Run him a cold bath. Call 911 in case anything. After Benny was literally acting possessed while I was sleeping in his room, I went to go open the note that his parents left that was only for emergencies. And guess what it said? The note literally said, sorry for not telling you. Run him a cold bath and call 911 if anything happens. I didn't know what to do, so I just went to go wake up Benny. So when I woke Benny up, he was really, really mad, and he kept trying to put his hands in front of my eyes and was telling me, please be nice to them, open up. And so long story short, I ran Benny a cold bath, and then he locked himself in the bathroom. So at this point, Benny has literally locked himself in the bathroom, and he's literally yelling out loud, please take her, not me, I won't tell anyone. This is the best part. So I called the police because I was scared for my life at this point. And the note that his parents left said to do that. So the cops tried calling Benny's parents, but they couldn't get a hold of them, but they got a hold of the grandparents. And eventually his grandparents came. So his grandparents come and they're like, we're gonna take him to a priest. And they told me to leave.
So when I was little, my mom took me and my brother to the local pool. I was 12, he was 4. So while my mom and I sunbathed, he played in the kiddie pool. When all of a sudden he comes up to us and says, Mommy, I gotta go pee-pee. And instead of taking him to the bathroom, my mom said, go pee-pee in the pool. Shame on you, Carolyn. We continued to lay out in the sun until all of a sudden we hear everyone scream. Oh my God, some kids peeing in the kiddie pool. Torian didn't understand, and he went over to the kiddie pool, pulled down his pants, and pee-peed like he was peeing in the toilet. But my mom is clever, and she pretended like she didn't know whose kid it was. And we never went back to that pool again.
This is why you should never go scuba diving in a big group. This is a picture of Tom and Eileen Lonergan, and on January 25th, 1998, they had no idea what was about to happen to them. They wanted the chance to scuba dive in the largest coral reef system in the world. So they set sail with 26 other people and went 25 miles away from the coast of Queensland, Australia, which was their original location. Tom and Eileen only thought they'd be going scuba diving for 40 minutes and they'd come back up and then they'd go back to their hotel. So after about 40 minutes, everybody boards the boat and they go back to Queensland. The next day, another group of divers go out to the same location and one of the divers found dive weights at the bottom of the ocean. They didn't think anything of it until they couldn't find Tom and Eileen. It had been 2 full days until anybody even noticed that they were gone. The people in the group with them just assumed they were out doing stuff or seeing Australia. People wanted to check on them to see if they were okay, so they went to the Lonergans' hotel room, and sitting outside of their door was their luggage. And that is when everybody realized they left them behind, because it had been 2 days and their luggage was untouched. Running out of time, but
be careful what you put in your body. In 2014, a couple returned to their home to find it trashed in baffling ways. There was lotion all over the door handles, all of their shoes had had their soles ripped off of them, and someone had dumped an entire can of paint all over the toilet. Despite the obvious break-in, the police come and can't find any evidence of theft, so they leave thinking the couple's not in danger anymore. That night, the couple hears scratching underneath their bed and what sounds like a crying animal. Not wanting to find out what it was, they leave and call the cops, who come right back and start investigating the house, and they make a startling discovery in their bedroom. Wedged underneath the couple's bed was this 90-pound tiny little woman carrying a huge butcher's knife and a hypodermic needle. As they're taking this crazy lady away in handcuffs, one of the officers comes over to the couple and is like, so she was high on meth, and for at least 2 hours, she had been burrowing a hole in the underside of your mattress with that knife to get to you.
This is why waking up late might just save your life. One day when I was in elementary school, my mom and I both overslept, which meant I wouldn't be ready in time to get on the bus. School started at 8, my bus pickup time was at 7, and it was already 6:40 or something. I was still in my PJs and hadn't even had breakfast yet. My mom decided that today we would just tell the bus driver to go on ahead and she would take me to school, which would give me plenty of time to get ready. It's 6:50, I'm in my PJs eating breakfast, and that's when we hear the bus pull up 10 minutes earlier than scheduled. My mom peeks her head out of the door into the foggy morning and waves the bus on. She closed the door and came back inside, but the bus didn't pull away. There's a knock at the door and my mom opens it to find a man in a bus driver uniform. He explains he's a substitute bus driver because the regular driver called in sick and that he's early because he wanted to get an early start on the route. My mom says she's taking me to school because we woke up late. He gets visibly upset and says he can wait a few minutes since he's already ahead of schedule. My mom says that we won't be ready in a few minutes and tells him to go on ahead. He seemed really angry about this, but turned around, got back on the bus, and left. But at 7 a.m., another bus pulls up to my house. My mom went out to talk to them and came back looking terrified.
Now I'm sure many of us have encountered little shits in supermarkets. Kids running around, knocking things over, being rude, but the worst are the biters. Today I was shopping in the grocery store when a biter got me. He broke skin too and I started bleeding. When I saw the blood on his teeth and the grin he had, the gears started turning and I got an idea. Made my eyes go wide and started screaming, shit, shit, fuck, no, no. My good friend was there too, and he instantly picked up on what I was doing. He started shouting, fuck, maybe he didn't get it. Shit. By now, the kid is scared shitless and starts crying, and instantly his mom appears out of nowhere and starts getting pissy at us for yelling at her kid. Here's the kicker. I look her straight in the eye and say, ma'am, get your son tested as soon as possible. He just bit me and I'm HIV positive. And now there's silence, not a peep in the entire store. Brat knows he just fucked up big time because his mom isn't defending his ass. He stares at me wide-eyed and I walk away from them to buy my groceries. All while blood is dripping from my calf, making a nice little trail on the floor. Just as we're about to leave, we start to hear the mom sobbing like the little she is.